Kai had always thought the worst pain in life was losing his baby at 12 weeks. Lying in that hospital bed, feeling his body expel the life he and his alpha husband had created, watching the doctor's sympathetic faces, enduring the hollow ache in his womb where their child should have been growing. That was the worst pain he'd ever known. He was wrong. The worst pain came 3 days after the miscarriage, when his husband of 5 years sat across from him at their dining room table and said, "I think we should open our marriage." Hi, besties.
Hi, besties.
Welcome back to Cozy
Welcome
BL
back
Corner.
to Cozy BL
If you're new
Corner.
here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stories like this take everything I have to create, and your support truly means the world to me. Now, get comfortable, maybe light a candle, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just a story. It's a journey through the kind of heartbreak that changes you and the kind of healing that saves you. So settle in, besties, because Kai and Ethan's story, it's going to get to you in the best way possible. It's going to make you cry, make you angry, make you believe that even when your world falls apart, even when the person who promised forever walks away, you can still build something beautiful from the ashes. Let's begin. The hospital's ceiling tiles had 847 little holes in them. I knew because I'd counted every single one during the 4 hours I'd been lying here, feeling my body betray me in the most devastating way possible. The cramping had started that morning, sharp, insistent, wrong. I called my husband immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "Adrian, something's wrong. I need you to come home. I'm in a meeting, Kai. Can it wait? The baby. Call your doctor. I'll try to get there when I can." He hadn't made it. Not to the house, not to the hospital, not even to hold my hand while the ultrasound technician's face went carefully blank and the doctor said those words that would haunt me forever. "I'm sorry. There's no heartbeat." 12 weeks. Our baby had made it 12 weeks before my body decided it couldn't hold on anymore. 12 weeks of planning, hoping, dreaming about the nursery we'd paint together, the names we'd choose, the family we'd finally become. Gone in a few hours of cramping and bleeding and apologetic nurses who'd seen this too many times to cry with me. I cried enough for all of them. The D&C procedure was quick, efficient, clinical. They put me under, removed what my body couldn't expel on its own. And when I woke up, I was just Kai again. Not Kai who was pregnant. Not Kai who was going to be a father. Just Kai, with an empty womb and a husband who still hadn't shown up. He arrived 3 hours later, still in his work suit, smelling like expensive cologne and the perfume of his secretary. I should have questioned that. I didn't. I was too busy being grateful he'd come at all. "Hey," Adrian said, standing in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. "How are you feeling?" How was I feeling? Like my body had just expelled our child. Like I'd failed at the one thing omegas were supposedly designed to do. Like the man I'd loved for 5 years couldn't even be bothered to hold my hand through the worst day of my life. "Tired," I said instead, because what else could I say? He sat in the chair by the window, not the one by my bed. The distance between us might as well have been an ocean. "The doctor said you'll need to rest for a few weeks. No strenuous activity." "Okay." And that we should wait at least 3 months before trying again. Trying again. Like our baby was a failed business venture, we could just restart with better planning. I felt something crack inside me, but I nodded because what else could I do? I loved him. I'd loved him since college, when he was the alpha every omega wanted, and somehow, impossibly, he'd chosen me. Quiet, artistic Kai who painted in his spare time and dreamed of opening a little gallery someday. He'd chosen me. And I'd spent 5 years trying to be worthy of that choice. "I should get back to the office," Adrian said, already standing. "Big presentation tomorrow, but I'll pick you up in the morning when they discharge you." "Okay." He left. I counted ceiling tiles until the nurse came with more pain medication and finally, mercifully, let me sleep. Adrian didn't pick me up the next morning. He texted at 6 a.m. that something urgent came up and I should take an Uber home. I didn't cry. I was too empty to cry. I just called the car, gathered my things, and went back to our beautiful hollow house in the suburbs. The nursery door was open. I'd been painting it yellow the week before, sunny, gender-neutral yellow with white trim. The paint cans were still there, the roller in the tray, exactly where I'd left them when the cramping started. I closed the door and didn't open it again. The first week was a blur of physical pain and emotional numbness. My body recovered faster than my heart. The cramping stopped. The bleeding slowed, and by day 10 I could walk without feeling like my insides were tearing apart. But every time I looked at Adrian, at the careful distance he kept, the way he found excuses to stay late at work, the way he flinched when I tried to touch him, I felt that tearing sensation all over again. 2 weeks after the miscarriage, he came home early. I was in the kitchen making dinner I wouldn't eat, moving through the motions of being a functional person, because what else was I supposed to do? Kai, we need to talk. For words. For simple words that made my blood go cold, because nothing good ever followed. We need to talk. I turned off the stove and followed him to the dining room. We sat across from each other at the table we'd picked out together 3 years ago, the one I'd wanted because it was big enough for a family. I'd imagined kids doing homework here, family dinners, Sunday pancakes. Now it just felt too big, too empty, too much of a reminder of everything we'd lost. I've been thinking, Adrian started, not quite meeting my eyes. About us. About our marriage. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it might burst. Okay, we got married young. You were 23, I was 27. We've been together 5 years now, and I think maybe we rushed into things. The house, trying for a baby, all of it. You said you wanted a family. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I did. I do. But maybe not right now. We're still young, Kai. We have time. He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes was worse than anger or grief or even indifference. It was pity. I think we should open our marriage.
I want an open marriage.
For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what he just said. What? An open marriage. We stay together, we're still married, but we're free to see other people. Explore. Figure out what we really want without the pressure of... He gestured vaguely at nothing. At everything. At the life we've been building that had crumbled the moment our baby's heart stopped beating. I don't understand. I could hear the tears in my voice, feel them building in my chest. You want to see other people? I want us both to have the freedom to be happy. This past year has been so focused on getting pregnant, on the baby, and now, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Now it's gone and I look at you, and all I see is sadness, and I don't know how to fix that. Maybe some distance would be good. For both of us. Distance. He wanted distance from me, because I was too sad about losing our baby. Too broken. Too much of a reminder of his failure to protect me. Or maybe my failure to carry his child. I couldn't tell which was worse. If you want a divorce, just say it. I whispered. I don't want a divorce. I want my wife. But I want my wife to be happy, and you're not happy, Kai. You haven't been happy since. He couldn't even say it. Since the miscarriage. Since our baby died. Since I failed. So your solution is for us to sleep with other people. Not just sex. Dating. Companionship. Whatever we need to feel alive again. We can still come home to each other at the end of the day. Still be married. Just with more freedom. I stared at him across the table. This alpha I'd loved for 5 years. This man I'd given up my dreams for. This person who was asking for permission to betray me while I was still recovering from losing her child. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that a small, broken piece of me thought maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was too damaged, too sad, too omega to keep him satisfied. If that's what you want, I heard myself say, it's what we both need. You'll see. This will be good for us. He reached across the table and took my hand, smiling like he just solved all our problems instead of destroying what was left of my heart. I let him hold my hand because I didn't know what else to do. I've been trained my whole life to defer to my alpha, to trust his decisions, to believe that he knew what was best for our family. Except we didn't have a family anymore. We had a marriage on paper and a husband who wanted the freedom to fuck other people while I sat at home and tried not to fall apart. Okay, I said, because what else could I say? He squeezed my hand, relieved. I already set up a profile on one of those apps, just to see what's out there. You should too. I think you'd be surprised how many people. I pull my hand away. I need a minute. Of course. This is a lot to process. But Kai, he caught my wrist as I stood to leave. This is going to save us. I promise. I nodded because it was easier than arguing, easier than crying, easier than admitting that our marriage had died the same day our baby did, and we were both just too cowardly to admit it. I went upstairs to our bedroom and locked the door and finally let myself shatter. The first time I saw Adrian with someone else, it was an accident. I've been driving home from the grocery store, a trip that took twice as long as it should because I kept getting distracted, forgetting what I needed, standing in aisles staring at baby food and tiny clothes and all the things I wouldn't need anymore. I'd force myself to make a list. Force myself to stick to it. Forced myself to function like a normal person who didn't have a gaping wound where their heart used to be. I stopped at a red light 2 blocks from our house and looked idly to my left. The Italian restaurant where Adrian and I had our first date, where he proposed, where we'd celebrated every anniversary since. And there he was, sitting in the window booth, holding hands with a woman I'd never seen before. She was beautiful, tall, alpha by the confident way she held herself, dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She was laughing at something Adrian said, and he was laughing too, really laughing, the way he used to laugh with me before everything got complicated and heavy and sad. The light turned green. Someone honked behind me. I drove home on autopilot, parked in the garage, and sat in the car for 20 minutes trying to remember how to breathe. He'd said open marriage. He'd said we'd both have freedom. I'd understood intellectually what that meant, but seeing him with someone else, happy in a way he hadn't been with me in months, that was different. That was a knife twisting in wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. I walked into the house, put away the groceries I didn't remember buying, and tried to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Angry? Betrayed? Relieved that at least he was being honest about what he wanted? I felt nothing. Just numb. Empty. Like I'd used up all my emotions on grief and had none left for this new pain. My phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Working late. Right? I wondered if the woman from the restaurant knew she was just working late. I wondered if she cared. I texted back, okay. What else was I supposed to say? 3 days later, Adrian came home at 2 in the morning smelling like unfamiliar perfume and looking defensive before I'd even said anything. I thought you'd be asleep, he said, finding me in the living room with a cup of tea I hadn't touched in an hour. Couldn't sleep. Oh, he shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Look, I know this is an adjustment period, but it's working for me, Kai. I feel more alive than I have in months. You should try it. Make a profile, meet some people. You'd be surprised how good it feels to. I saw you, I interrupted, at Moretti's, with that woman. He had the grace to look guilty for about 3 seconds before his expression shifted to defensive. We agreed to this. You said it was okay. I know what I said. Then what's the problem? You knew I was seeing other people. That was the whole point. There's knowing and there's seeing, Adrian. There's understanding intellectually that my husband is fucking other people, and there's watching him hold someone else's hand in the restaurant where he proposed to me. You're being dramatic. The words hit me like a slap. Dramatic. I was being dramatic for having feelings about my husband's infidelity. Infidelity he'd asked permission for while I was still bleeding from losing our baby. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of this room. I don't want to look at you right now. Okay, get out. I'd never yelled at him before. Not once in 5 years. I'd always been the agreeable omega, the understanding partner, the one who compromised and adjusted and made myself smaller so he could be bigger. Not anymore. Adrian left. I heard him go upstairs, heard the shower start, heard him get ready for bed like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just confirmed that our marriage was a joke and I was the only one not in on it. I sat in the living room until dawn, drinking cold tea and trying to figure out when I become so pathetic. When had I stopped being Kai who painted and Kai who dreamed and Kai who had his own ambitions and become just Kai the Omega who couldn't even be to term? My phone sat on a coffee table, dark and silent. I picked it up, opened the app store, and downloaded the dating app Adrian had mentioned. Not because I wanted to date, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to do something, anything that made me feel less like a victim of my own life. I made a profile, took a selfie that didn't look too dead inside, wrote a bio that was honest, 28 Omega, married but in an open relationship. Not looking for anything serious. Just want to feel human again. I posted it and waited for the universe to tell me I was making a mistake. The universe said nothing, but my phone started buzzing with notifications, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than grief. It felt like a possibility. His name was Ethan Vale, and he was everything Adrian wasn't. His profile picture showed an alpha with dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that looked like they could see through bullshit. His bio was simple. 34 alpha, CO, too busy for games. Looking for someone real. He messaged me first. Your profile says you want to feel human again. I can relate to that. We texted for 3 days before he suggested coffee. I almost said no. Almost blocked him and deleted the app and went back to my life of quiet suffering. But then Adrian came home with hickeys on his neck that he didn't even bother to hide, and I said yes to coffee with a stranger because fuck it, what did I have to lose? We met at a small cafe downtown, far enough from home that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I got there early, nervous, wondering what the hell I was doing. I was still wearing my wedding ring, still technically married, still in love with a man who checked out of our relationship the moment things got hard. Ethan arrived exactly on time, somehow looking better than his pictures. Tall, confident, the kind of alpha presence that made people naturally move out of his way. He spotted me in the corner, smiled, and for the first time in weeks, I felt my heart beat faster for something other than anxiety. Okay, he extended his hand. I shook it, noting the firm grip, the calluses that suggested he worked with his hands despite being a CEO. That's me. Thanks for meeting me. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. Why wouldn't I? He sat down across from me, flagging a waitress. You said you needed to feel human again. That's not a small thing. No, it's not. We ordered coffee, made small talk. He asked what I did, and I almost lied, almost said I had some important career, but I was too tired for pretense. I paint, I admitted. Or I used to. I haven't touched a brush in months. Why not? Life got complicated. The open marriage thing. Not a question. He'd read my profile, knew what he was getting into. How's that working out for you? How do you think? He smiled, but it wasn't unkind. About as well as it works for most people who try it. Which is to say, not at all. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Divorced, he said simply. 3 years ago. She wanted to open things up, said she felt trapped. Turned out she just wanted permission to fuck her personal trainer without the guilt. We lasted 6 months after that conversation before I finally admitted what we both knew. It was over. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. Freed me up to focus on work, on building something that mattered. Haven't dated seriously since. He took a sip of his coffee, studying me over the rim. Until maybe now. My heart did that thing again. That flutter that felt dangerous and exciting and terrifying. I'm still married. I know, and I'm not. I'm not looking for anything serious. You just want to feel wanted again. Ethan finished. You want someone to look at you like you matter. Like you're more than whatever role your husband has decided you should play. I stared at him. How did you? Because I've been there. Because I know what it's like to love someone who's already checked out and not have the courage to admit it. He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. I'm not going to lie to you, Kai. I saw your profile, and I thought you were beautiful. I read your bio, and I thought you sounded broken. And I wanted to meet you because I've been broken too, and maybe we could be broken together for a little while and see what happens. That's the saddest pitch I've ever heard. He laughed, and the sound was genuine and warm and made something in my chest unclench just a little. Yeah, well, I'm out of practice with the whole wooing thing. But I'm honest. If we do this, whatever this is, I promise I'll be honest with you. No games. No bullshit. Just two people trying to figure out how to feel human again. I should have said no. Should have finished my coffee and gone home and tried to fix my marriage like a good Omega. But I was so tired of being good. So tired of being understanding. So tired of being the one who sacrificed everything while Adrian took whatever he wanted. Okay, I said. Let's be broken together. We talked for 3 hours. About everything and nothing. He told me about his company, tech industry, direct competitor to Adrian's firm, though I didn't mention that part. Told me about his divorce, his workaholic tendencies, the way he'd thrown himself into building his business to avoid dealing with his feelings. I told him about the painting I'd abandoned, the gallery dreams I'd shelved, the version of myself I'd lost somewhere between getting married and trying to become what I thought a good Omega husband should be. I didn't tell him about the miscarriage. Couldn't. That wound was too fresh, too raw, too much to share with a stranger in a coffee shop. But when we finally left and he walked in my car, he said something that made me wonder if he somehow knew anyway. Whatever happened to make you stop painting, whatever made you lose yourself, that wasn't your fault. You know that, right? I didn't know that. Didn't know if I'd ever believe it. But I nodded anyway. Can I see you again? He asked. Yes. He smiled, and I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not happy exactly, but less alone. Adrian didn't notice. He was too busy with his own explorations, coming home late or not at all, leaving traces of his affairs everywhere. Unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, lipstick on his collar, the satisfied smile of someone who was getting exactly what he wanted. I stopped asking where he'd been, stopped pretending I cared. We moved around each other like ghosts in our own house, polite and distant, and so far from the couple we'd been that I sometimes wondered if we'd ever been in love at all, or if I'd just been so desperate to be chosen that I'd convinced myself his attention was the same as love. I saw Ethan twice more that week. Coffee again, then lunch, then dinner at a restaurant where he held my hand across the table and asked me questions about myself that no one had asked in years. Not, "How are you feeling?" in that careful, pitying tone, but "What's your favorite color? And if you could paint anything right now, what would it be? And what's your favorite memory?" My favorite memory used to be my wedding day. Adrian in his suit, me in traditional Omega white. Both of us so young and hopeful and stupid. Now I couldn't remember without feeling sick. "I don't know," I admitted. "I think all my favorite memories are things that haven't happened yet." "Then let's make some new ones." He took me to an art supply store. Bought me paints and brushes and canvases. Expensive ones, the kind I'd always wanted but couldn't justify spending money on when Adrian controlled our finances and thought painting was a cute hobby, not a real pursuit. "I can't accept this," I protested, looking at the bags full of supplies. "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because we barely know each other. Because you're not used to people investing in you without expecting something in return," Ethan said quietly. "I get that, but I'm not looking for payback, Kai. I just want to see you paint. You light up when you talk about it. I want to see you light up in person." I wanted to cry, wanted to hug him, wanted to run away because this was too much, too fast, too everything. Instead, I said thank you and let him load the supplies in my car and drove home wondering what the hell I was doing. Adrian was in the living room when I got there, on his laptop, barely looking up as I struggled with the bags. "What's all that?" he asked absently. "Art supplies. I'm going to start painting again." "That's good. You need a hobby." A hobby. Like painting was just something to fill time between being his wife and being his convenient excuse for why he wasn't happy. I didn't argue. Just took the supplies up to the spare bedroom, the one that was supposed to be a nursery, and set up a makeshift studio. The yellow paint was still on the walls. The baby furniture we'd started buying was still in boxes in the corner. I should have felt sad looking at it. Should have felt that crushing grief that had defined my last month. Instead, I felt angry. Angry at Adrian for asking me to try for a baby and then abandoning me when it went wrong. Angry at myself for going along with it, for thinking a baby would fix whatever was broken between us. Angry at the universe for letting me love someone who clearly didn't love me back the same way. I took out the canvases Ethan had bought me, set one on the easel, stared at the blank white surface, and tried to figure out what I wanted to create. What came out was fire. Reds and oranges and yellows bleeding into each other, consuming everything, destroying and purifying at the same time. I painted until my hands cramped. Painted until Adrian came upstairs and told me he was going out and would be back late. Painted until the sun set and my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Thinking of you. I hope you're painting." I sent back a picture of the canvas. Flames reaching toward an unseen sky. Beautiful and terrible and raw. He called immediately. "That's incredible." It's angry. Anger is honest. Better than pretending everything's fine when it's not. We talked for an hour. About art and anger and honesty. About what it meant to feel things fully instead of pushing them down. About how sometimes the only way to heal was to burn down everything that was hurting you and start fresh from the ashes. When we finally hung up, I looked at the painting again. Looked at the nursery that would never be a nursery. Looked at my wedding ring that felt more like a shackle every day. And I made a decision. Adrian came home at 4 a.m. smelling like someone else's bed. I was sitting in the living room, painting supplies spread across the coffee table, working on my second canvas. This one was darker, blues and blacks, and the kind of grief that lived in shadows. "You're up late," he said, loosening his tie. "Couldn't sleep. The painting thing is good. You seem happier." He came closer, tried to see what I was working on. "What is it?" "Ah, grave." He recoiled slightly. "That's dark. I lost a baby.
I lost a baby,
Adrian.
and I'm allowed to be dark.
The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. We didn't talk about the miscarriage. Hadn't since that awful day in the hospital. It sat between us like a ghost, present and suffocating and impossible to ignore, but somehow we'd been managing to do exactly that. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I know I haven't been there for you the way I should have been. It's hard for me too. Losing the baby. I didn't know how to handle it. So you asked for an open marriage." I thought it would help. Help who, Adrian? Because it sure as hell hasn't helped me. He sat down on the couch, looking tired in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour. What do you want me to say, Kai? That I made a mistake? That I wish I could take it back? Do you? Wish you could take it back? He was quiet for a long time. Too long. Long enough that I knew the answer before he said it. I've been happier these last few weeks than I've been in over a year. I feel like myself again. Like I'm not suffocating under the weight of everything we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be a family. We were supposed to be a lot of things. But life doesn't always work out the way we plan. I set down my brush carefully, deliberately, because if I didn't focus on something, I was going to start screaming. You're right. Life doesn't work out the way we plan. I planned to have a baby. Planned to have a husband who loved me enough to hold my hand through the hard parts. Planned to matter to someone. You matter to me. Doi. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I'm just the omega you're too guilty to divorce. The one you keep around for appearances while you fuck your way through every alpha in the city. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. You wanted honesty, right? You wanted us to be free to explore and find ourselves. Well, I found myself, Adrian. And what I found is that I deserve better than this. Better than you. He stood up, angry now. You're seeing someone. It wasn't a question. Yes. How long? A few weeks. You're fucking someone else. His voice rose, alpha authority creeping in, that commanding tone that was supposed to make me submit. It didn't work. Hadn't worked on me since the day I realized he didn't deserve my submission. You don't get to be mad about this. This was your idea. Your solution to our problems. You wanted an open marriage. You got one. Or did you think only you got to have fun while I sat home and waited for you? This is different. How? Because you're my omega. You're my husband. You're supposed to. Supposed to what? Let you walk all over me? Watch you fall in love with other people and pretend it doesn't kill me? Play the perfect, understanding spouse while you figure out that you don't want to be married anymore. The words hung in the air between us, ugly and true. Adrian's face went through several emotions. Anger, guilt, something that might have been shame if he was capable of feeling it. I never said I didn't want to be married, he said finally. You didn't have to. Everything you've done for the last month has said it loud and clear. I stood up, gathering my paints. I'm sleeping in the spare room. Don't wait up. Okay, we're done with this conversation, Adrian. We're probably done with a lot of things. But right now I'm done talking to you. I left him in the living room and locked myself in the room that was supposed to be a nursery and was now my studio and my sanctuary. I texted Ethan. Can I see you tomorrow? Of course. Everything okay? No, but it will be. I set up another canvas. Painted through the dawn. This time the image that emerged was a phoenix rising from flames, beautiful and terrible and reborn. I met Ethan for coffee the next morning looking like I hadn't slept, which I hadn't. He took one look at me and insisted we go to his place instead. I'm not trying to seduce you, he said when I hesitated. I just think you need somewhere quiet to be that isn't your house. My apartment is quiet. I have good coffee. And I promise to be a perfect gentleman unless you explicitly tell me not to be. His apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Modern, expensive, impeccably decorated in that way that said a professional designer had been involved. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture was sleek and probably cost more than my car. But it felt empty too, like a staged model home waiting for someone to actually live there. How long have you lived here? I asked, accepting the coffee he handed me. 3 years. Since the divorce. It's beautiful. It's lonely. But I guess that's the point. Hard to feel too much when you live somewhere that doesn't feel like home. He sat beside me on the couch, careful to maintain distance. Do you want to talk about what happened? I had a fight with my husband. Told him I was seeing someone. He didn't take it well. Did he hurt you? The immediate concern in Ethan's voice did something to me. Adrian hadn't asked if I was okay in weeks. Hadn't seemed to care beyond the superficial, beyond maintaining appearances. Not physically, but yeah, he hurt me. He's been hurting me for a while, and I just kept letting it happen because I thought that's what love was. Sacrifice and patience and understanding. I didn't realize I was the only one doing any of those things. Ethan set down his coffee and turned to face me fully. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you still married to him? The question hit harder than it should have. Because I love him. Or I did. Or I don't know anymore. Because marriage is supposed to be forever. Because omegas don't just give up on their alphas. Because I'm scared of what happens if I leave. Because Because you think you failed when you lost the baby and you're trying to make up for it by being the perfect Omega wife. I stared at him. How did you? You mentioned you hadn't painted in months. That life got complicated. The timeline matches up with your marriage opening up. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took my hand. I'm not stupid, Kai. I could do the math. Something happened that broke you. And instead of your husband helping you through it, he asked for permission to leave. And you said yes because you thought it was your fault. The tears came without warning. I tried to stop them, tried to hold it together, but I couldn't. All the grief I'd been holding in for weeks came pouring out, ugly, messy sobs that made my whole body shake. Ethan pulled me against his chest and held me. Just held me. Didn't tell me it would be okay, or that everything happens for a reason, or any of the useless platitudes people had been throwing at me for weeks. He just held me and let me cry, and when I finally ran out of tears, he handed me tissues and waited. I lost a baby, I said quietly. 12 weeks pregnant. My body just gave up, and my husband, my alpha, the person who was supposed to love me through anything, he asked for an open marriage 2 weeks later. So we needed space. Said we were too young to be tied down. Said maybe it was a sign. Jesus Christ. I thought if I just gave him time, if I was understanding enough, if I could heal fast enough, we'd be okay. But we're not okay. He's happy fucking other people, and I'm just broken. And I don't know how to fix myself. You don't need to be fixed. Ethan's voice was fierce, certain. You need to be allowed to grieve. You need a partner who gives a damn about your pain. You need someone who sees you as more than a convenient place to come home to when they're done playing around. I don't know how to leave him. Then don't. Not yet. Not until you're ready. He cupped my face gently, forcing me to look at him. But stop thinking you're not enough. Stop thinking you failed. Your body went through something traumatic. You lost a child. That's not failure, Kai. That's tragedy. And you deserve to have someone hold you through it instead of running away. I kissed him. Couldn't help myself. Pulled him close and kissed him with all the desperate need of someone drowning. He kissed me back, but gently, carefully, like I was something precious that might break. When we finally pulled apart, I was crying again, but for different reasons. Stay with me today, Ethan said. Let me take care of you. No expectations. No pressure. Just let someone care about you for a few hours. I stayed. We didn't have sex. He kept his promise to be a gentleman. But we spent the day together. He ordered food. We watched movies. He asked me more about my painting, and I asked him about his business. We talked and laughed and existed in this bubble where my marriage didn't matter, where the grief couldn't touch me, where I was just Kai and he was just Ethan, and we were two people trying to be less broken. When the sun started setting, I knew I had to go home. Back to the house I shared with a man who didn't love me anymore. Back to the nursery-turned-studio. Back to my real life. Thank you, I said, gathering my things. For today. For listening. For not judging. Come back tomorrow, Ethan said. And the day after. And the day after that. For as long as you need. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. You're... He stopped, seemed to reconsider what he was about to say. You're becoming important to me. I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't looking for it. But here we are. Here we are, I echoed. I drove home through rush hour traffic, my mind spinning. What was I doing? Starting something with Ethan while still married to Adrian? Using another man to fill the void my husband had left? That made me just as bad as Adrian, didn't it? Except it didn't feel the same. Adrian had asked for the open marriage because he was done with me. Because I was too sad, too needy, too much of a reminder of our failure. Ethan wanted to spend time with me because of who I was, not despite it. He saw my broken pieces and didn't run. He held space for my grief without trying to fix it or rush me through it. That was different, wasn't it? Adrian's car wasn't in the driveway when I got home. I checked my phone, no messages. He probably wouldn't be home until late. Or at all. I was starting to lose track of how many nights he spent somewhere else. I went to my studio and painted, lost myself in colors and textures and the feeling of creating something from nothing. The canvas that emerged was softer than my recent work, sunrise colors, warm and hopeful, with shadows that suggested pain but didn't drown in it. I was still painting when Adrian came home at midnight. I heard him walk upstairs, pause outside my door, then keep going to our bedroom. He didn't knock, didn't ask if I was okay. We were strangers living in the same house, and maybe we had been for longer than I wanted to admit. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. I can't stop thinking about you. Is that okay? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. It's more than okay. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, I want to be honest with you about something. I need you to know something before this goes any further. My heart sank. Here it was, the catch. The revelation that would prove this was too good to be true. I know who your husband is. I stopped breathing. Adrian Cross, CEO of Cross Tech Solutions. My biggest business rival. I've known since you told me your husband was in tech and worked downtown. There aren't that many major CEOs named Adrian in this city. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I didn't seek you out because of it. The next message came quickly. I didn't match with you to get back at him or gain some business advantage. I didn't even know you were his husband until we met for coffee and you mentioned some details that made me put together. And I kept seeing you because I like you, not because of some rivalry with him. My hands were shaking, but you didn't tell me. You knew and you didn't tell me. I didn't tell you because it doesn't matter. Because whatever is happening between us has nothing to do with him. Because I was afraid if you knew, you'd think that's what this was about, and it's not. Kai, I swear this is about you and me. Nothing else. I set my phone down and tried to process this. Ethan was Adrian's rival. The man I'd been falling for was the one person Adrian hated most in the business world. They'd been competing for contracts, for clients, for market dominance for years. Adrian came home cursing Ethan Vale's name at least once a week. And I'd been sleeping in Ethan's apartment, kissing him, telling him things about my marriage that could probably be used as ammunition. I need time to think, I texted back. I understand. But Kai, whatever you're thinking, whatever worst-case scenario you're imagining, it's not that. I care about you. That's real. Everything else is just noise. I didn't respond. Turned off my phone, stared at my painting, and tried to figure out how my life had become such a mess. I didn't see Ethan for 3 days. Didn't answer his calls or texts. Spent the time painting and thinking and trying to figure out what was real and what was manipulation. Adrian noticed something was wrong, which surprised me. He actually looked up from his laptop one evening and asked, "Everything okay? You seem distracted. I'm Fina. You haven't been going out. The guy you were seeing, did something happen?" I could have told him. Could have said, "Yeah, turns out I've been falling for Ethan Vale, your mortal enemy. How's that for irony?" But I didn't. Some self-preserving instinct told me that information was dangerous in Adrian's hands. "We're taking a break," I said instead. "Probably for the best. You were getting too attached. That's the whole point of open marriages. Keeping things casual. Casual, right? Like my heart hadn't been involved from the first coffee. Like I hadn't started imagining a future where I wasn't married to Adrian anymore and could actually be with someone who saw me as a person instead of failed incubator. "Is that what you're doing?" I asked. "Keeping things casual?" Adrian shifted uncomfortably. Mostly. There's someone I've been seeing more regularly. Rebecca. She's nice. Easy to be around. She doesn't expect," he stopped. "Doesn't expect what?" "Nothing. Never mind. No. Finish the sentence." "She doesn't expect what, Adrian?" He closed his laptop, sighing like I was being difficult. "She doesn't expect me to be something I'm not. She's not waiting for me to be this perfect alpha who wants kids and domesticity and a partner who actually needs you." I finished. "She doesn't expect you to be emotionally available because she doesn't need emotional availability." How convenient. You're twisting my words. I'm understanding them perfectly. I stood up, done with this conversation, done with him. "You never wanted what I wanted. You married me because it's what alphas do. Find an omega, settle down, start family. But you never actually wanted the family part. You just wanted the appearance of it. And when I couldn't give you that appearance anymore, when I lost the baby and became complicated and sad, you found a way out. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Adrian. You asked for an open marriage while I was still recovering from miscarriage. You've been fucking other people in our bed, in the house we were supposed to raise children in, and I've just been expected to smile and accept it because you've convinced me it's what I need too. You are seeing other people." His voice rose, alpha command bleeding through. "You just admitted you were seeing someone. Because you made me feel like I had to, like I wasn't enough, like the only way to keep you was to let you go." I was yelling now, months of pain and rage pouring out. "I lost our baby, Adrian. Our baby died inside me, and you couldn't even be bothered to hold my hand in the hospital. You were too busy with work, too busy with your affairs, too busy being anywhere but with me. I didn't know how to help you. You could have tried. You could have been there. You could have grieved with me instead of running away. But you didn't. You asked for permission to abandon me, and I was stupid enough to give it to you. We stood there, both breathing hard, years of resentment finally exposed. Adrian's face was red, his hands clenched into fists. I waited for him to yell back, to fight, to show some emotion beyond cold detachment. Instead, he said quietly, "Maybe we should have just gotten divorced." The words landed like a punch. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. This isn't. We're not happy, Kai. Neither of us. We're just going through the motions because we're too scared to admit this was a mistake. Our marriage was a mistake. My voice came out small, broken. No. Yes. I don't know. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. I loved you when we got married. I did. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being partners and started being obligations. And I don't know if we can find our way back from that. So this is it. We're done. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I walked toward the stairs, toward my studio, toward my sanctuary. I'll find a lawyer this week. We can start the paperwork. Kai, wait. No, you're right. We're not happy. We haven't been for a long time. And I'm tired of pretending. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, looked back at him one last time. I loved you, Adrian. I loved you so much it hurt. And you threw that away the second things got hard. I hope Rebecca makes you happy. I hope she never needs you the way I needed you. Because I wouldn't wish that kind of abandonment on anyone. I went upstairs and locked myself in my studio and finally let myself admit what I'd known for weeks. My marriage was over. I texted Ethan at 2 in the morning. Can we talk? He called immediately. I'm here. What do you need? I need to know if this is real. If you actually care about me, or if this is some elaborate revenge plot against Adrian. It's real. No hositación. No deflección. I care about you, Kai. I'm falling for you. And I don't give a damn about Adrian beyond the fact that he's an idiot who didn't appreciate what he had. I asked Adrian for a divorce tonight. Silence. Then, how do you feel? Terrified. Relieved. Heartbroken. Free. All of it at once. That sounds about right. I could hear him moving around, could picture him pacing his apartment. What do you need from me? I need to know if you'll still want me once I'm divorced. Once I'm not Adrian Cross's husband anymore. Once I'm just Kai with baggage and trauma and a complete mess of a life. I want you because you're Kai. Everything else is just details. He paused. Can I come over? I know it's late, but I want to be there for you. Adrian's here. Then come to me. Right now. Pack a bag and come stay with me. For tonight, for a week, for however long you need. Just don't be in that house anymore. You deserve better than that. I looked around my studio, at the paintings I'd created, at the space I'd built from grief and anger and determination, at the evidence that I was still here, still creating, still surviving despite everything. I'll be there in an hour. I packed quickly, clothes, toiletries, my paints. Everything that mattered fit in 2 bags. Everything else could stay. I left my wedding ring on the bathroom counter. Didn't write a note. Adrian would figure it out. He was asleep in our bed. In his bed now, I supposed, when I left. Didn't wake up as I walked out of our bedroom for the last time. Didn't notice as I loaded my car and drove away from the house we'd bought together, the life we tried to build, the future that had died along with our baby. Ethan was waiting in the lobby of his building when I arrived. Took my bags without a word. Held me when I started crying in the elevator. Led me to his apartment and to his guest room and said, "Stay as long as you need. This is a safe place. You're safe here." I was safe. For the first time in months, I felt safe. I slept for 12 hours straight. Woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. Found Ethan in the kitchen, already dressed for work, but waiting. "Morning," he said softly. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." I accepted the coffee he handed me. "Aren't you late for work?" "Work can wait. You're more important." "Ethan, I mean it, Kai. Whatever you need today, I'm here. If you need space, I'll go to the office. If you need company, I'll work from home. If you need someone to hold you while you cry, I'm available for that too." I set down the coffee and walked into his arms. Let him hold me while I processed everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. I left my husband, walked away from 5 years of marriage, chosen myself for the first time maybe ever. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. "I need to find a lawyer," I said into Ethan's chest. "Need to start divorce proceedings. Need to figure out where I'm going to live long term. Need to. Today, you need to breathe. Everything else can wait. You pull back to look at me. You just made the hardest decision of your life. Give yourself permission to just exist for a day before you start planning the next steps. I don't know how to just exist. Then I'll teach you. He smiled. We'll order breakfast. You can paint if you want. I'll clear out a room for you to use as a studio. We'll watch movies, or talk, or sit in comfortable silence. Whatever you need. No pressure. No expectations. Just be here. Be safe. Be you. So that's what I did. Spent the day existing. Painted a little. Nothing profound. Just colors and shapes that felt right. Ate food I didn't have to cook. Sat on the couch with Ethan while he worked on his laptop, and I sketched. Existed in a space where I didn't have to perform or pretend or be anything other than exactly who I was. My phone buzzed multiple times, Adrian calling, texting, realizing I was gone. I turned it off. Whatever he had to say could wait. For the first time in our relationship, his needs weren't my priority. I was. The divorce took 6 months. 6 months of lawyers and paperwork, and Adrian alternating between begging me to come back and threatening to destroy me. 6 months of staying in Ethan's guest room and slowly building a life that was mine. 6 months of healing and painting and learning how to exist without defining myself by my relationship to an alpha who'd never deserved me. Adrian tried everything. Showed up at Ethan's building until security banned him. Called my friends and family, poisoning them with stories about how I'd abandoned him, how I was having an affair with his rival, how I was an ungrateful Omega who didn't know his place. Some believed him. Most didn't. The ones who mattered stood by me. He never apologized for leaving me alone after the miscarriage. Never acknowledged his role in destroying our marriage. Just played the victim, painting himself as the wronged husband whose Omega had run off with his business rival. The business community ate it up. Adrian Cross, betrayed by his husband. The scandal of the year. His company took a hit. Clients didn't like the messy personal life, the lack of control, the way he'd handled everything. Meanwhile, Ethan's company thrived. Not because of me, though Adrian would claim it was. Because Ethan was good at what he did, and without the distraction of competing with Adrian for personal reasons, he could focus purely on business. Ethan and I took things slow, slower than I would have thought possible given how we'd started. He meant what he'd said about being a gentleman. Gave me space to heal. Didn't push for more than I was ready to give. We went on dates. Real dates. Got to know each other beyond the broken pieces we'd first bonded over. I learned he was funny. Genuinely funny. With a dry wit that caught me off guard and made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. I learned he was thoughtful. Remembered tiny details about things I'd mentioned once in passing and would surprise me with thoughtful gestures. I learned he was patient. Never got frustrated when I had bad days, when the grief would hit me unexpectedly, when I needed space to process everything I'd been through. And slowly, carefully, I learned how to trust again. 3 months after I left Adrian, I finished my first major painting since the miscarriage. It was a series, actually, 5 large canvases that told the story of my journey. Loss, grief, destruction, rebirth, hope. I showed them to Ethan first, nervous about what he'd think. He stood in front of them for a long time, without speaking. When he finally turned to look at me, his eyes were wet. These are extraordinary, Kai. You have to show these. Gallery show. Something. The world needs to see these. They're too personal. That's what makes them powerful. Every person who's ever lost something will see themselves in these paintings. You've taken your pain and turned it into something beautiful. That's a gift. He helped me organize a small gallery showing. Nothing big, just a local art space, an evening event, some wine and cheese. I invited everyone I cared about. My friends came. Ethan's business associates came. Even some people from my old life showed up. Adrian came too. I saw him standing in the back, staring at the paintings, his face unreadable. When he saw me noticing him, he walked over. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I looked at Ethan, who squeezed my hand and said, "I'll be right over there if you need me." Adrian and I stepped outside into the cool evening air. We stood in silence for a moment before he finally spoke. "Your paintings are beautiful. You were always talented, but these are something else." "Thank you. They're about the miscarriage. About us. About what happened. They're about my experience. My pain. My healing. You're part of that story, but you're not the whole story." He nodded, looking older than I remembered. Tired. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the bullshit excuses I gave during the divorce. I fucked up Kai. Badly. I should have been there for you after we lost the baby. Should have grieved with you instead of running away. Should have held your hand instead of asking for an open marriage like a coward. Yes, you should have. I was scared. Is that a good excuse? No, but it's the truth. I was scared of your pain, scared of my own feelings, scared that if I let myself feel everything, I'd fall apart. So I ran, and I destroyed us in the process. You destroyed us long before the miscarriage, Adrian. We were already broken. Losing the baby just made it impossible to pretend anymore. I know. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I see you with him. With Ethan. And you're happy. Really happy. The way you used to be with me before everything got complicated. I am healing. That's different from happy. But yes, Ethan makes me feel safe. Feel seen. Feel valued. Things I didn't feel with you for a long time. I'm not asking you to come back. I know that ship has sailed. I needed you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. And I hope you find everything you're looking for. It was the most honest Adrian had been with me in years. Maybe ever. And standing there, looking at the man I'd once loved enough to marry, I realized I didn't love him anymore. Didn't hate him either. Just felt a distant sadness for what we'd been and what we'd lost. I hope you find what you're looking for too, Adrian. I hope you learn how to be present with people. How to show up when things get hard. How to be a real partner instead of just a husband on paper. Yeah, me too. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed my forehead. Goodbye, Adrian. I watched him walk away, disappearing into the city streets. Felt the final thread connecting us snap. And then I went back inside, back to my paintings, back to Ethan who was waiting with a smile and open arms. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I am. And I meant it. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. I signed the papers in a lawyer's office, watched Adrian sign across from me, and walked out of the building a free man. No longer married. No longer tied to someone who didn't value me. No longer defined by a relationship that had been dead long before we'd officially ended it. Ethan picked me up outside. How do you feel? Light. I feel light. Want to celebrate? Or just go home and process? Actually, I took a deep breath. I want to move out of your guest room. His face fell. Oh, of course. I'll help you find a place we can look at. I want to move into your bedroom. With you. If that's okay. He stopped walking. Stared at me. You what? I've been in your guest room for 6 months because I needed space to heal. I needed to figure out who I was outside of being Adrian's husband. I needed to not jump from one relationship immediately into another. I stepped closer to him. But I've done that work. I know who I am now. And I know I want to be with you. Really with you. Not as your guest. Not as someone you're taking care of. But as your partner. Are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured. I'm not. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Because you showed up for me when no one else did. Because you held space for my grief without trying to fix it. Because you taught me what it looks like when someone actually cares about you, instead of just needing you to perform a role. Ethan pulled me into a kiss right there on the sidewalk. Deep and passionate, and full of 6 months of waiting, of wanting, of earning this moment. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. Move into my bedroom, he said. Move into my life. Stay as long as you want. Forever, preferably. Forever sounds good. We went back to his apartment. Our apartment now, I supposed. And for the first time in 6 months, I didn't sleep in a guest room. I slept in Ethan's arms, in his bed, in a space that felt like coming home. 2 months later, I stood in the gallery, surrounded by my paintings. This wasn't the small local showing from before. This was a real gallery show, with critics and buyers and more attention than I'd ever imagined getting. The series I'd started after leaving Adrian had grown, evolved, become something bigger than just my personal story. The Evolution of Loss was what I'd titled the collection. 20 paintings that tracked the journey from devastation to healing. The miscarriage was there, yes. But so was the bad marriage, the moment of choosing myself, the slow rebuild of my identity. The final painting, the one I'd finished just last week, was different from all the others. It was a phoenix, not rising from ashes like the one I'd painted months ago, but soaring above them, strong and beautiful and reborn. And in the background, barely visible if you didn't know to look for it, was a figure. Someone standing with the phoenix, not carrying it or saving it, but simply being there. witnessing, supporting, loving. Ethan stood next to me, looking at that painting with an expression I couldn't quite read. That's me, isn't it? In the background. Yes. Is that okay? Okay. Kites, his voice broke. It's perfect. You're perfect. This whole show is perfect. A woman in an expensive dress approached us, her assistant holding a tablet. Mr. Hayes? I'm Samantha Chun from the Modern Arts Foundation. I'd like to talk to you about acquiring several pieces for our permanent collection, if you're interested. I looked at Ethan, who smiled and squeezed my hand. Go. I'll be right here when you're done. I spent the next hour talking to buyers and critics and people who saw something in my work that resonated with them. Heard stories from other people who'd experienced loss, who'd left bad relationships, who'd had to rebuild themselves from nothing. My paintings had touched something in them, had helped them feel less alone. This was what I dreamed of back before I'd met Adrian, before I convinced myself being a wife was more important than being an artist. This validation, this connection, this proof that my work mattered. When the crowd finally thinned and I could breathe again, I found Ethan talking to a man I vaguely recognized from TV. Some art critic who could make or break careers with a single review. Quite extraordinary, the critic was saying. The raw emotion, the technical skill, the narrative arc. I haven't seen anything like it in years. You must be very proud of him. I am, Ethan said simply. But I'm not surprised. Kai's always been extraordinary. The world's just finally catching up. The critic excused himself, and I moved into the space beside Ethan. I sold 3 paintings tonight. 3 major pieces to actual collectors. That's amazing. One of them was the Phoenix. I told them it wasn't for sale, but they offered $50,000. And you said? I said no. That one's not for sale. That one's ours. He turned to look at me, really look at me, and I saw everything I needed to see in his eyes. Love, pride, support, partnership, everything Adrian had never been capable of giving me. I have something for you, Ethan said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box, and my heart stopped. Ethan, before you panic, it's not an engagement ring. We talked about taking things slow, and I meant that. But I needed you to have this. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band with a small inscription. You chose yourself first. It's a promise, Ethan explained. Not of marriage or forever or anything that would pressure you. Just a promise that I see you, that I value you, that I'll stand beside you while you soar, not try to clip your wings to keep you grounded. I took the ring out of the box, slipped it onto my right hand, the opposite hand from where I'd worn my wedding ring. It fit perfectly. How did you know my size? Your friend Maya helped. Lots of people helped, actually. They all love you very much, and they're all very invested in you being happy. I am happy. I looked around the gallery, at my paintings, at the evidence of everything I'd survived and created and become. At Ethan, who'd been there for all of it without asking for anything in return. I'm really, genuinely happy. Good. You deserve it. He kissed me softly. Now let's get out of here and go celebrate properly. We left the gallery hand in hand, walking out into a city that had been the backdrop for my worst pain and my greatest healing. I thought about Adrian briefly, wondered if he was happy with Rebecca, hoped he'd learned something from our disaster of a marriage. But mostly I just felt grateful. Grateful that I'd survived losing my baby. Grateful that I'd been brave enough to leave a marriage that was killing me slowly. Grateful that I'd met Ethan when I did, broken and vulnerable and needing someone to see me as human. Grateful for every painful step that had led me here, to this moment, this life, this version of myself that I'd fought so hard to become. The phoenix in my painting was rising above ashes. But standing here with Ethan's hand in mine and my art hanging in a gallery and a future stretching out ahead of me that was mine to create, I wasn't rising anymore. I was flying. The end. If this story reminded you that it's never too late to choose yourself, that healing is possible even after devastating loss, and that sometimes the best life is the one we build after everything falls apart, drop a comment with your favorite moment. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional journeys about love, loss, and finding yourself again.